What's up, guys? Welcome back. Welcome back. Cool. So I have my new mic with me right now. It's the Blue Yeti mic. Super excited about it because obviously, at least hopefully, the sound quality is going to be a little bit better. So we have this mic with us now. Good to go. Okay, so we're jumping right into it. So we were talking about like this idea of determinism versus like our own ability and self-awareness to determine who we are, right? And so we're moving on to this section called Between Stimulus and Response, which this is an amazing section. Really, really inspirational story about Viktor Frankl. Super excited to tell it. So this section answers the questions we talked about at the end of last episode. So I'm just going to go over those questions again, which are: how accurately and functionally do these deterministic maps describe the territory? That's talking about the genetic determinism, environmental determinism, and the psychic determinism. How clearly do these mirrors reflect the true nature of man? Do they become self-fulfilling prophecies? Are they based on principles we can validate within ourselves? So those are the questions that he's asking, and in answer to those questions, he shares the story of Viktor Frankl. So to give you guys a little bit of a background on Frankl, he grew up studying Freudian psychology. And essentially what that meant was that the way that you were raised, or like your background, your childhood, those experiences shape and dictate your character and your personality. They basically govern your whole life. And so the restrictions and limitations are already set on your life, and there's really nothing you can do about it, but it's kind of like already set in stone. And so he grew up studying that and learning it and believing it to be true. And in addition to those things, he was also a psychiatrist and a Jew. And because he was a Jew, he was thrown into one of the Nazi death camps during World War II in Germany. And basically, him and his sister were the only members of his family to survive. The rest of them died. But this is a really, really cool story about how he used his unique human endowments to overcome and to gain more freedom than his Nazi captors. So essentially, he's sitting down in his room. He's naked. He's alone, and he becomes to He comes to a realization of what he calls the last of human freedoms. So I can take away your job, maybe your family, your house, your property. I can take away all your money, cars, possessions, even your reputation. I can take all of that stuff away, but there is a unique human endowment that I can't take away, and that is self-awareness. That we have this ability within ourselves to respond to our environment. So let's say someone punches me in the face, right? Well, I have the unique ability to then hug that person afterwards. Would it be kind of weird to show that kind of love after an act of anger or hatred? Probably, but could I do it? Yeah, I could. I'm not limited by my instincts, by my conditioning, by my past experiences. I have this ability to be able to rewrite my own scripts. And so my basic identity is intact. I can use this self-awareness to look at me as an observer and to decide within myself my true identity. And so there's this line that they say here that between stimulus and response lies a gap. And in that gap lies our freedom to choose. So the punch is the stimulus, and our response is the hug, and we can choose that response. Or we can choose to hit it back. It just kind of depends on whatever you want. But your basic identity is going to basically influence that a lot. And we choose our basic identity because we decide it from within. So essentially, what Franco would do in these death camps to kind of like get through all of like just the terrible stuff that would happen, like indignities and just terrible things, is he would project himself into the future, teaching students in his university classes about the experiences that he was having and lessons that he was learning. And so because he did that, he was able to expand that space to where it became larger and larger and larger and larger until he actually gained more freedom than his Nazi captors. And what I mean by that is that like he exercised this small embryonic freedom until it grew so big that nothing really that would happen to him would alter his emotional state or his mental state. He would discipline that so well to the point where it didn't matter what anybody did to him, he still was the same like mental and emotional state, because he had gone through these like visualizations and affirmations and like protection by projecting himself into the future. And so through doing that, he was able to Stephen Covey explains it like this. He said the Nazi captors had more liberty, more options to choose from in their environment, but he had more freedom, more internal power to exercise his options. And so through that like process, he actually became inspiration to a lot of the prisoners as well, and even to the guards. That's a cool thing too, that Viktor Frankl, as a Jew and a prisoner in a Nazi death camp during World War II, he inspired the guards to find meaning in their own lives and like true significance. Amazing stuff there. But there's that, and then he kind of goes into the 4 unique human endowments, like what makes us human rather than animals. So essentially, Frankl uses the first one, which is self-awareness. Even in the most like degrading circumstances possible or even imaginable, he uses this self-awareness to discover that he has the ability to respond, right? The second one is imagination, which is essentially this ability that we have in our minds to create a vision for ourselves or for the future, to create an image or a movie or a picture of something that isn't actually reality. So if I want to go out and knock doors, right, and sell a certain amount of accounts that I've never done before, I can visualize that. I can use my imagination to kind of project that movie and to feel it and to see what it looks like and to actually be like in the moment and like feel those emotions. The third unique human endowment is conscience. Conscience is really cool. It's a deep inner awareness or like understanding of what is right and what is wrong, which also goes back to our talk about the maps and the territories, and how when we have a principle-centered map, like our conscience will let us know how accurately we are aligning our behaviors and attitudes with those principles, or how often we're breaking ourselves against those principles. And so that's like our conscience is the ability to differentiate between right and wrong, but also to let us know how effective we are harmonizing ourselves with those true and correct principles, such as integrity, loyalty, hard work, keeping commitments, justice, fairness, those kind of things. And then the last one is independent will, which is this ability to act, to have power, to make decisions, to execute. So that's like independent will. So he says that like a lot of like animals can't, like animals can be responsible or can be trained to be responsible, but they can't take responsibility for that training. So they can run the code, but they can't rewrite the code or the program, whereas we humans can. For example, like lions and prairie dogs, we use this analogy in body language all the time, where we want to be like a lion, which is very open and confident and slow and very like fearless and king of the jungle, right? Whereas a prairie dog is very like shifty and nervous and stressful and like popping in and out of the ground and moving quickly, right? lots of nervous. And so prairie dogs are always going to act like that. And lions are always going to act open, slow, and confident. There's no changing that. They can't rewrite that program. Whereas we as humans, we can do that. We can shift our body language to be like that of a lion. We can train that. Or we can train it to be kind of like that of a prairie dog, depending on our situation. But that's just one example of how we have this ability to rewrite our own scripts, to rewrite our own programs, which is actually really, really cool. Another cool insight is the animals aren't even aware that of the program. They just run it and they do it, but they're not even aware that it's actually there. Whereas we are aware that we do have these programs. So that's like why we have dominion over the earth and why an animal's capacity is like limited and man's is unlimited. But so many times we live like animals, unaware of our own scripts, unaware of the programs that run our lives, unaware of the first creations of other people that dictate what we do and their influence. And so we live out of our own instincts and conditioning, out of our like memory, which is so limiting, not out of our imagination. So I did that special episode I think probably like a week and a half ago on the difference between memory and imagination. And he mentions that here, whereas imagination is a proactive way of using our unique human endowments. But memory is a way of not using that unique human endowment and living out of our instincts, our conditions, and not rewriting scripts, but falling back on old scripts that probably aren't very effective. And so these scripts, these conditions, this whole psychology behind that of determinism, that whole paradigm, it mainly comes from studying animals like dogs, rats, pigeons, monkeys, mice, right? And so this paradigm makes sense when you apply it to animals because they just run the script and they're not even aware of it. But it does not accurately describe us as humans. It is an inaccurate map of who we are. It does not accurately describe our true nature and divinity, because we do have the power to rewrite our own scripts. Between stimulus and response lies our freedom, the freedom to choose, right? Like that is what makes us uniquely human, and it lifts us above the animal world. And so this is like a really, really cool concept. I remember one time I just barely missed the train. Now I was going to be 5 minutes early, but I had realized I went to the wrong station. And so I just missed it. And I remember being so frustrated. Are you kidding? I just missed it. I have to wait another hour for the next train to happen, right? So I felt like I was wasting my day. And then this idea of this between stimulus and response came into my head. And I said, no, I'm a proactive, self-aware, unique being where I can actually choose my response to this train leaving early, or me missing the train because the train left on time. And I then all of a sudden took on a grateful attitude that now I had an hour to work on stuff, to read a book, do some homework, and that's exactly what I did. And I was actually able to get some cool stuff done. That was a really cool example of me of how I have this ability to choose my responses to everything. If someone yells at me, I have an ability to still view them with love and patience and light and truth. I have an ability to still hold on to what's dear. I don't have to give in to my feelings or my moods. I'm not my moods, I'm not my emotions, but rather I can choose proactively those emotions, and I can choose my paradigms, I can choose my scripts. I just need to take the time to do that. But we do have that capacity, and that is very, 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 very powerful. So yeah, guys, that's it for today. Next is going to be proactivity defined. Super excited for this one. But thank you guys for hopping on and listening. I appreciate it, and have a great day.